Fantastic. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the October Government Affairs meeting. This morning, we're joined by Bret Bennett, who is the new Chief of Inspectional Services and Building Commissioner as well. Correct. So kind of jack of all trades. Bret's a local contractor who was the head of an ISD in Reading. Yes. Was it in the Hunt too?
Yeah, interim and on.
And so he's got some municipal experience as well as prior work for ISD here in Lynn before taking the job at Reading. So with some changes, Mike Donovan was the longtime head of inspectional services. He's moved on to overseeing capital projects in the city, and so now Bret's in charge of inspectional services. And figured we'd have Bret come in this morning and talk a little bit about some of the changes that he sees with the department and some of the things that he does, maybe some of the procedures and permitting for some of our members that need to go into City Hall and get various permits. So welcome, Bret. Thanks for coming.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. So like Rick said, my name is Bret. Been with the city about 5 months now, so fairly new, still figuring everything out. Municipal career started in Lynn about 10 years ago as a local inspector for the city. From there, I worked on my commissioner's license and went off to Reading. I was there for about 4 years, and as Rick said, kind of filled in the Hunt for maybe about 6 months while they were kind of in the midst of finding somebody. So I've been with the city about 5 months now. You know, still figuring everything out, getting used to everything. A big department. ISD kind of encumbers, 3 different departments. The inspectional side of it, which health inspections, building inspections, the new rental program. The facilities department oversees, roughly 50 city buildings, about 3 million square feet of property. So that's one of the busiest sides of it. Something always going on with the average age of the building is about 100 years old, so it always keeps us busy. And then the health department is the other side of it, public health sector, which Lisa Tobin runs. All the flu vaccinations, blood drives, everything like that. It's a busy position, working to kind of streamline everything. One of the biggest goals and issues I've been seeing and hearing is the permitting process. The online portal isn't too friendly to residents, business owners for licenses, any permits like that. So we're in the midst of kind of exploring some other options to make it more streamlined, get all the applications on the current portal, and just make it easier for the residents and the business owners of Lynn to kind of interact and streamline things on that end. So that's the biggest kind of challenge right now. As Rick mentioned, they did kind of separate the capital improvement department out of ISD. So Mike Donovan's running that. So anything over 25,000 is we kind of collaborate together and hand it over to the CPU department. We have long-term projects that we kind of all work together and get a game plan on, and they kind of take the lead on that. So that's been very helpful for me. Mike obviously does a great job. He has a knowledge of it, so it's good to have him kind of overrun that and him to be there to kind of give me some pointers and help me out along the way. Another thing is that all inspections have been brought in-house now. The city was using a third-party company, Safe Built. Now everything is internal. We have an internal plumbing inspector. We have 4 building inspectors, an electrical inspector, 4 health sanitary inspectors, weights and measures. So all city employees, which is great, all in the same office, all collaborate great together. The rental program is another big thing that was rolled out in 2023, I believe. Roughly 12 to 13,000 rental units within the city of Lynn. The goal is that every unit gets inspected once every 5 years. So that has led to cleaning up a lot of apartments, for the renters. Landlords are kind of on notice now with kind of keeping up with things. And I think the biggest outcome of that is we find a lot of illegal, unsafe apartments. I think that's been one of the better aspects of this program is, like, obviously, we're in a housing crisis, people are living everywhere, but we need to make sure that these areas are safe. I mean, we'll probably find 1 to 2 illegal apartments every week, whether it's in a garage, an attic space, basement. So this program has been really helpful to kind of identify those, in conjunction with the fire department, the health department. We can identify, problem properties that are, always a nuisance, whether it be trash, road. So this program really helps identify all that stuff. Those are kind of the bigger changes. Again, just trying to get used to everything, a big department, old buildings, working with the school department, roughly, I think it's 30 school buildings now with the addition of 195 Market Street and Rycliffe Lodge just kind of onboarded this year, so getting used to those buildings. CPU is still building out a couple floors in Market Street, so that'll be fully occupied in about 2 years. So that's about it.
So Brett, with the apartment inspections. And they're done every 5 years. Is there like a tip line or something if one pops up that a neighbor identifies them like, hey, I know there's people living in the garage. or living in-
Yeah, we use C-Click Fix or, our regular ISD line emails. There's links to everything right on our webpage, the City of Lynn webpage on the ISD portal. So, any tips that come through, kind of go through that route.
And so one of the things I know that it's kind of by right, a lot of communities have issues with it, but it was passed by the legislature. It's the ADUs.
Sure.
We kind of explain that a little bit.
Yep, so the ADUs are accessory dwelling units. The size can be 50% of the principal dwelling unit up to 900 square feet. It is allowed by right, does have to meet setbacks, lot coverage.
Parking requirements to go along with that.
There are parking requirements, one space, if it's within a bus stop or transit area, no parking is required. So I mean, this definitely helps out with the housing crisis. When I was in Reading, they were kind of ahead of the game. They did it was kind of a special permit through the zoning board, but I was kind of familiar with it through there. So completely separate dwelling unit. It can be within the dwelling. It can be, an old garage converted, as long as all the life safety and building permits are pulled, it can be converted. Pretty much where it stands, if it's an existing structure, obviously it has to be brought up to code for egresses, fire alarm systems. So any district that allows a single family dwelling unit, it's allowed by right. Obviously, again, building code requirements are required. If it's a new existing structure, it would have to meet all the existing setbacks.
So if the original property is 1,000 square foot property, be 1,000 square foot, ADU up to 1,000 square feet.
Yep.
And one of the other things that I used to run into when I was on the council was folks wanting to convert singles into multis when they were in R1 district. So is that allowed now without going to PDA, or the single family neighborhoods, do they still maintain the same thing?
So they're still maintained as single family neighborhoods. With the new zoning change, the zoning board can't grant use variances anymore.
Oh, they cannot.
So that's kind of a little bit of a restriction on that. I mean, obviously in an R2, a single family can be converted by right, but any of the R1 districts is the best route for that would be the ADU. Okay. Keeping the single family district, 2 single families, with the no more use variances, it's more of the ADU.
So you talked a little bit about the permitting portal is being a little unfriendly. Do you look at like what some other cities and towns use? I know like, being in Revere, it's pretty easy to go online and apply.
So the new HUD software out there is OpenGov. We kind of implemented that in Reading when I was there. That's what I believe Revere has. Multiple surrounding communities have OpenGov. So it's one username. So for contractors, it's very helpful because it works in every community. Same username, same login, works for every community, and it's just more layman's term, more user friendly. You know, SmartGov is good. It was implemented, I think, about 10 years ago when I was first here in Lynn. But it's more like designer kind of focused. It's hard to find things, it seems. It's still not fully set up on our portal, so none of our health permits are on there yet, just because, you know, it's hard, the support's tough. You know, so we've been talking to OpenGov, looking at OpenGov, trying to work out some pricing to get, you know, everything kind of moved over with over, you know, 100,000 buildings in the city is a lot of information on the SmartGov, so we want to make sure it's a seamless transition, everything kind of moves over smoothly, so it's kind of it's a lot behind the scenes. We're in contract with SmartGov right now, so it's something that we're on. Something that everybody kind of sees within the office, and that's kind of one of our base complaints, so definitely something we want to move forward on and find a way to make it work. Yeah.
I know, even from experience paying taxes, excise taxes, and property taxes, all on, I forget the system that they use. City hall systems or something, that can even be a little cumbersome, but after getting a ticket Monday night, my own lot, that process couldn't be any easier. You know, you grab your violation, log right on your phone, you know, and have it paid before you pull out of the parking lot.
Yeah, so that's what we'll try with OpenGov is, it's a, you know, it could be a citywide program. It could be used by DPW, it could be used by the clerk's office, fire department, health department, planning department, so everybody's kind of, you know, all grouped in together. You know, we trigger the planning department, they can approve their process on there, and it's just streamlined, everything's right in front of you. You can see when planning signed off, you can see when the health department signed off, you see, you know, what you're waiting for. It is like a live interactive chat right on there, so if the inspector's at their desk and the contractor, the homeowner is at their computer, it's, you know, I refer to it as like an AOL chat, where you, no emails back and forth, it's just, you know, as long as, you know, you're at your computer or your phone or anything, it's, you know, it's instantaneous, you know, just shooting a text message pretty much, and you know, that's the biggest thing with SmartGov is there's no real notifications of if you're missing a site plan or a plot plan, building plans. You know, we're kind of going old school and emailing the applicant just because the notifications is tough. So when they email it back to us, we're taking it from our email, uploading it into SmartGov, you know, so it's just too many steps, more steps than it should be, so it's just streamlining that thing. Hey, I just uploaded my plot plan, you can see it right away, and that's the only thing that's required, then the permit's issued immediately.
And it's gotta be a lot easier for contractors to, have something that's consistent, that they know how they deal with same system they use.
Yeah, so everybody, Swampscott's using it now, Marble Bed's using it, Everett, Winthrop, Reading, Danvers, so everybody's kind of jumping on board with this system, so. It's definitely one of the, you know, the top priorities of mine, and just trying to make it work with budgets and everything is obviously a challenge, but it'll, you know, we'll push through and figure out how to make it happen.
Anyone have any?
I just want to ask if the, my name is Down, by the way, if the same rule apply for commercial, and the 5-year, better chicken and everything. That applies for commercial as well, with the
So just rental, residential rental.
residential.
I'd love to ask about the schools and what you might see there. I mean, it's always nice to have someone, you know, new, fresh set of eyes come in. The school, I'm focused on schools, but in general,
Yeah.
what do you see in some ways, see any particular inefficiencies that we can streamline or modernize? And I don't know if you have any, you don't have any examples, but just, you know, is that on your radar? I mean, people see so much, that's what we're doing, and they literally see the waste, you know, in some ways, and I'm sure they see inefficiency. You know, anything off the top?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, even, you know, coming into this job, first starting this job, talking to Mike Donovan, it said 80% of your time is gonna be spent on the school side. As far as the inspection sides, that's obviously a big priority, but the school buildings are just, you know, they're old, every one of them needs maintenance. Again, the average age of these schools is 100 years old, so it's kind of been to the point where we're just trying to keep things moving. So I think now with the capital projects unit, they can focus on, you know, long-term capital goals, if we can focus on the day-to-day maintenance and PMs and stuff like that. So the preventative maintenance has been obviously a challenge because it's trying to, again, keep up with the demand. I mean, it's every day, it's clogged sewer here or the heating system down here, the AC is not working, so we're running around trying to just keep everything a smooth operation and not focusing on, but now with the capital unit, they can kind of focus on capital improvement. You know, we had a big project coming up at Siston with CPU, with doors and windows, big MSPCA project. I mean, the schools they're in tough shape. You know, it's a huge, not burden on us, but I mean, you know, we have 7 craftsmen, 2 electricians and 2 plumbers, so we're pretty restricted. We're adding buildings, you know, we've added about 200,000 square feet this last year, and we've only added 2 custodians, so. It's obviously hard with budget constraints and enrollment, it's all driven off of the school enrollment and all that, so it's definitely a huge priority. We're trying to just set up not a new system, but kind of just get everything on board and try to just prioritize all the deferred maintenance that's kind of been going on. You know, no fault to anybody, it's just, there's just so many of them and they're just all aged that it's, you know, every day it's just keeping up with the requests, you know, so. With the school department, they kind of recently had like a facilities liaison, who kind of, you know, I'm in direct communication with. It was Deb area who just retired, now it's Helen Fritz. So I think that's a huge help because everything kind of goes to them and then they kind of filter out to us. So instead of all the principals reaching out to our department, it kind of comes from that one, you know, that one liaison that kind of, they can prioritize in-house and then, you know, throw it our way. They know when to email, when to text, and then if the phone ringing, it's an emergency, you know, so. I think that's been a huge help, and obviously I think preventative maintenance is a huge goal of mine, to try to get everything on track for a regular scheduled preventative maintenance, so we can kind of keep an eye on everything. So that's, you know, the big goal is preventative maintenance, and I think with the creation of the capital projects, I think, you know, we'll be able to kind of focus on that now. When before it was focused on everything, so I think that'll help with the 2 separate departments to kind of dial in and get a game plan together to get on a regular schedule with maintenance.
Now, did school custodians stay in ISD, or are they on? Yeah, school about it.
No, they're under.
Oh, okay, I heard something about.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, no, they're all on, right under ISD. I believe we have around 50 custodians, I think. So we just hired 2 for 1.5 for Market Street and then 1 for Briarcliff Lodge, Virginia Department. So we'll, you know, as Market Street gets filled out, there'll be another custodian there, so there'll be 2.5 there and 1 at Briarcliff.
Touch for a second, maybe some people don't know all the shifting that's gone on with schools, how, you know, some have moved out of, you know, the plan to move out of Old Classical into Market Street, and then put the new ACE Arts and Science Academy and the Old Classical and.
Yeah, there's a lot of.
The Briarcliff opening.
Correct, there's a lot of movement to try to, you know, obviously the schools are overcrowded, so the CASA program is kind of. To take some pressure off of classical and English, so CASA is now at the Old Classical, which was Fecto Larry, but Fecto Larry is now the Harold Douglas Success Academy. So they're still, you know, both programs are running out of Fecto now, but the Harold Durgan, sorry, will go to 195 Market Street. CASA will be there, and also the Frederick Douglass pre-college program is at Market Street, as well as the Welcoming Center will be on the 1st floor and all the admin is on the 5th floor. So those are the big changes. That, again, CPU did a big build out at Fecto this year to get CASA in there. You know, so that definitely helped taking some pressure off the English and classical to kind of, you know, spread some students out and focus on the science and the arts at CASA. So so the Old Classical will be fully occupied with the CASA, and then the Harold Durkin Academy will go over to 195 Market Street. Again, along with the Welcome Center, the admin's on the 5th floor, and then the Frederick Douglass Collegiate School is there now.
Stuff going on.
There is, there's a lot of moving parts.
That's gonna be ISD that's going to build this. arts and sciences 21st century modern academy in the old classical? Is that?
So that's the CPU, so that's the capital projects unit.
Okay.
So they kind of, they get all the plans together with that. They did a big renovation, over the summer this year, and then this summer they'll do another, I think they're putting roughly $5 to $7 million into that school. So that they have some big projects going on, as well as the build out in 195 Market Street. That's first floor and first, third, and fifth are mostly complete and occupied, and then they'll be working on the second and fourth floor to build those out, starting in, I think, January, they'll start those projects. So there's a lot of, a lot of moving parts, a lot of good things happening. Market Street's a great building. It hasn't been used how we intend to use it, but it's a great space for us. It will relieve a lot of pressure on some of these overpopulated schools.
So it's planned to move everything from Century Bank building? I think, well.
Yeah, so that's the welcoming center, so that'll be on the first floor of Market Street, yes, so that'll. Everything's kind of, the admin at Bennett Street is at Market Street. And then 37 French Street, the senior center, there's still some admin there, and they will all move over to Market Street. So, and then Bennett Street is now pre-K. So all the admin kind of moved from there. They did a small build out there for pre-K. So that building, I think the main goal, that'll be all pre-K, early childhood.
So when those build outs are taking place, are they mainly done by contractors versus?
Yes.
Using?
Yeah, so the CPU kind of just oversees, they have the project managers, they have both, 3 project managers, and obviously Mike's the director there, so they kind of oversee the projects, but it's all contractors. So,
Well, it's not tying up the other.
nope, yeah, exactly, they're just kind of, that department is pretty much just running the projects, and they hire them. So none of that, burden is now, we'll do some odds and ends at the end of it, kind of in conjunction with CPU, but everything is just ran by contractors, and they're just kind of overseeing everything, making sure everything runs smoothly.
Any other questions?
Somebody sent me a question. It says, from a real estate perspective, if someone buys a multifamily, are they automatically enrolled for a unit inspection, or do they have to sign up for the 5-year inspection?
So they would have to register, we would send out a registration notice. If we have an email on file, we send it out via email, if not, we send it directly.
And restaurant inspections, Sergio, kind of, so I can walk in, maybe think of, the restaurants and all. That still run the same, that's still under health.
So, yeah, restaurants inspections is still under health, we do a yearly 3 or 4 inspections, like a liquor license inspection with the building department and fire department. So those are upcoming right now. So every year, the building department with the fire department just goes in and checks all the life safety devices. Make sure the egresses are open, sprinkler alarm reports, and then they need our inspection in order to renew their liquor license every year. So those will be starting the end of this month.
So
I guess a little bit of context, from the chairman of the board for the North Shore Latino Business Association, so the president of the Restaurant Association. My focus, my company is called Manca, we only do food service, we deal a lot with the city for inspections. I'd say probably one of the biggest things that I would love to see here, I would take a page out of what Pittsburgh did, right? Right now, we're seeing a lot of transition between food business, restaurants. And one of the biggest barriers is I get a phone call after the business is phone. It was told us like, no, we passed on our inspections, right? Because the inspection you really get yearly is the one you like a license. But then there's a lot of changes. Obviously, over 33% of it remodel obviously triggers everything. Access ways, ADA, all that stuff. So I would say there's one thing that I love that Fitchburg does. They have this one meeting where you can request. And it's a combination with economic development as well as ISD, fire, building, plumbing, electrical, and they take one meeting and walk around the space. That is before this transition happens, because we can put a contingency of the purchase and sales agreement, right? After this inspection, are we really up to code, right? Are we really up to code in this? Because those sellers, most buyers take that inspection as that final say, but that doesn't involve fire, the involving the hood cleans, right? That inspection really it's not for function. But I think that would be something great to see as far as, how do we assist some of these buyers so that they're not caught? Since the Georgias, I'll give you that. Because over there, the business was sold and then there was so many changes that need to happen, right? So there's a lot of that happening. Well, there's a transition between businesses. And the plan review process, is hard for me to do, right? I would say, it's a little counterproductive for me to say that the plan review process should be easier, considering that's probably their biggest money maker. But I do see that, Lynn has a very thorough plan review process, which has made it a little bit easier for people to do due diligence before the property is purchased. But I think that part is one thing that I would love to see, just to be able to protect a lot of these immigrant buyers that don't know what a lot of these many rules are when it comes to restaurants, right? Because we deal with all those different trades. So that would be something I would probably take out of the page of what Pittsburgh does. So, and then my next thing would be a streamlined process for food trucks. We don't have a food truck program here, but being part of the TDI downtown committee, one of the things is how do we reactivate, some of the downtown area, right? I don't know when we'll have the conversation about food trucks, but even for the food truck event, it makes it a little difficult to be able to say everything. So I don't have a great idea for that, but I would say that is one of the things. And inspection that has made it a little bit of a barrier to be able to come in to be able to do that food truck. And I think that's on state level that we're trying to figure out a way, how can we get a state level food permit with these local establishments so that you can transition between places, similar to what Rhode Island has done, what Florida does as well.
No, absolutely, yeah, I mean, we're obviously open for input, we're trying to make changes and streamline everything. It's one of our biggest goals, like I said, none of our food applications or any health licenses or even it's all paper applications. You can pay online, and then one of the biggest things we see is, once a restaurant or a business owner pays, they feel like, hey, I paid, I'm good to go, and we don't have the documentation because it's not in the system or it was submitted wrong, so I think getting a new system in place to kind of streamline all that is gonna be helpful for everybody, just to, even internally, kind of, some of the clerks are like, you need a permit, this permit for this and that permit for that, and, it's kind of, there's just so many things, encumbered in one, that it's definitely challenging. We hope to streamline the process and, always looking for input from business owners, from residents of, what their struggles are and what we can do better to streamline.
I have a couple of questions, Rick.
Yes.
I'm Glenn Morris. I'm the chair of campus planning at St. Mary's and the architect for St. Mary's Plaza, where we're doing a bunch of phased renovations. First question is, will you have a zoning officer in your department, or will that go through planning?
We have a zoning enforcement officer through ISD.
Okay, good. Is the city considering implementing a Birdo program?
I haven't heard anything as of yet, no.
Everybody else around is, so.
What program was that, Glenn?
Birdo, BERDO, it's a building energy documentation program. There are several levels, and Newton, where I live, has, of course, the most difficult level.
Yeah, so I mean, they're moving definitely forward on the energy. They just hired an energy manager, and they're in the process of hiring an advocate as well. So that's all under the CPU department, so I think they're definitely trying to focus, more on energy efficiency and everything else. With those hires and keeping everything under that department.
Hey, any other questions for Bret? Anything you'd like to add?
No, that's it. I mean, I appreciate the time. Again, we're always looking for, that hard criticism, we'll take it to try to figure out what we can do better. We want to streamline everything. The goal is obviously to get everything online, to get everything on the portal, so. Any struggles, we'll take the criticism and take it in-house and see how we can fix it. There's obviously issues in big departments like this, and the public is, probably sees it the most. Some things that the public sees, we just don't see sometimes, so we need to be made aware of that so we can work to fix that.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. Hopefully you stay in touch with the chamber as well as North Shore Latino Business. Because if we can, if people can have their questions answered before they ask them, I think it makes everybody's life easier. Some of the scenarios that Sergio was talking about, you got somebody that's basically forked over their life savings to open up a business, and then boom, this hits you that you need to go through all these new hoops to be able to run. I think it would be good if we can, constantly stay in contact and everybody knows what to expect when they start going down, those various roads, but I wish you a lot of luck.
Thank you.
One of the toughest jobs in City Hall, a lot to digest and see, so appreciate it.
Yes, thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
All right, so anything we need to add, what's they going on, wine tasting tonight?
Tomorrow night.
Oh, okay. Are you going? Yeah. I shouldn't have the calendar opened up, but look out for your emails. Christine and Ryan, make sure all those announcements are sent out all the time. So thanks for me. So thank you all. I think the weather's gonna be a little rougher coming out than it was coming in, but hopefully you brought your jacket. So have a great day, everyone. We'll see you next month. Thank you.
Well.